Hey, here we go. Part 2 of this 10-part super exciting segment of the 80s, college music, college rock of the 80s. As I mentioned in the first installment, this is a favorite time period for me. And by the way, the first installment, I somehow accidentally deleted the whole damn video. Now, I can post it back up and maybe I'll do it. But for those that watched it, if you see like 100 to 91 pop back up, don't watch it. I've already done it. You don't need to see it again. Unless you enjoyed it so much, then watch it again. I would just put it back up for posterity's sake. And if you just want to watch the whole thing and have a binge watching episode. But this week we are going to go from number 90 down to 81. Now these aren't ranked as my favorite albums all the way down, though the ones toward the very bottom, it's the cream of the crop, shall we say, the creme de la creme. These are more some ones that you may never have heard of, kind of out there, different. Some are, some aren't. So you ready? I'm ready. Let's do it. Number 90. Belphegor. I guess I'm saying that right, Belphegor. This was a three-piece band. It had an American bassist, a Canadian drummer, and a German guitarist. And they kind of created a unique, shall we say, like it's like a crypto metal band, German gothic new wave type band. Really, when I think of this band, it avoids the cliches of other metal bands and tends to fall really somewhere in between Motorhead and Joy Division. They started in 1980 and they went on to 1985, just off Elektra Records, and they were big in Germany. Oh my God, the Germans loved them. This is their self-titled second album. Usually do the first, but it's their self-titled second album, and it actually had a college radio hit of All That I Wanted playing in the background. A lot of these, when I do each album, I will be playing something in the background if you can hear it. Hopefully you can, so you get a feel, because it's black. Everything on this album is black. Like, why? I don't know. But their hit, All That I Wanted, it actually got MTV airplay, and so they got noticed. The band, it also supported U2 on the Unforgettable Fire tour, so I thought that was pretty interesting. When you think about the music on this album, it really is, it's like a marriage if you take metal and electronics and put it together. It was, at the time, it was kind of ahead of its time. You're looking at the craft work that was going on, but also some of the goth that was coming through. And come the 90s, their music, what these guys did, Belphegor took off, and it became more mainstream. But when this came out, and this one came out in, hold on, I gotta read from my glass, so tiny. And this came out, oh my God, 1984. It was still something new. So, Belphegor, number 90. Number 89, Sex Gang Children. Well, isn't that just something your parents would have loved to have you drag home? Hey, Mom and Dad, I'm playing a little Sex Gang Children. Do you mind? It's like gothic rock. It was a post-punk band formed in 82 in Brixton in London. That's the name of Brixton in London, I believe is the name of the town. They only had one studio album, ta-da! But they did have a number of compilations that came out that included their singles. Now, this group is kind of fascinating. They were part of what was called the Batcave scene, which was a gothic subsect, and was formed in a club in London called Club Batcave. Other bands that were part of the Batcave scene was Alien Sex Fiend and Specimen. Now these guys, they originally had called themselves Panic Button. The reason why is Malcolm McLaren, he had taken the name Alien Sex Fiend, so he owned that name, and that name came from a William Burroughs novel. Well, he wanted to give it to one of his groups, but they decided to go with a different name, which was Bow Wow Wow. So that name became available. So what happened? Boy George grabbed it, and he was going to name his group Sex Gang Children. But guess what? One of the band members says, no, why don't we call it Culture Club instead? So the name went up again. And then Panic Button grabbed it and said, yeah, baby, we got it finally. So they became Sex Gang Children. And they produced one album, while the other ones did just a little bit better, didn't they? Again, this is their first vinyl release. And this album, it's rather dramatic. It has a heavy bass, and there's just this tribal drumming. This is thumpity, 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 thumping going on. There's very dramatic vocals, and it has a cabaret type of a sound. And what it would do is this album did spark what was called the dark cabaret scene. It's just crazy about stuff, isn't it? When I first got this one, I scratched my head when it was done. I go, wow, what did I listen to? I get it better now. I enjoyed it more now. Is it a classic? No, but it was important. They brought out kind of a new, darker, and a different part of goth. And I wasn't big into goth, but this was just a subsect of it. So, number 89, the famous, the hard to get that name, Sex Gang Children. Number 88, Shock Therapy. This was an electro-punk band that came out of Detroit. Detroit in the house! And they were formed in 82 by a nice young man named Gregory McCormick, a.k.a. Itchy Wigglechrist. Parents were proud of him. There's no doubt about it. Shock Therapy, they released 16 albums. And with their most popular song really was Hate Just a Four-Letter Word. And that was big in Germany. They really liked that. Thing is, Itchy was arrested for arson in 2000, and so they put the band on hiatus. He was released in 2007, so he really burned down something good. But if he was in Detroit, everyone burned down places in Detroit. But still, so they came out in 2007. They started the band again, but he died in 2008, and basically it was a drug overdose on alcohol. He just drunk himself to death. This is their debut album, Shock, and it's filled really with synth and electronic hand claps. There's a rumbling drum machine. It just creates this beat, and it really pushes the music forward. Besides having Itchy on synth, vocals, and rhythm and guitar, there's Eric Jackson. He plays the lead and does the vocals. And this album, Shock Therapy, which is their self-titled, it came out in 1985. This is a really good example of post-punk electro-industrial music. Now, work on saying that 5 times fast. That's post-punk electro-industrial music. The music is very dark and cold, and it's really due to the heavy synths. And the vocals really aren't always, for me, easy to understand, but at least they're not screaming. It's not a scream band. To me, at times, they sound like The Cure. You know, they just have that darkness about them when it came to early Cure, not like Kiss Me, Kiss Me. So, neat band out of Detroit, number 88, Shock Therapy. Number 87, it's The Lucy Show, and this is their album Mania. I recently showed this on my Sunday morning show. The group was formed in 1983. It's an alt-rock, post-punk, new wave band. Originally they were called Midnight Movie, but they switched it over to The Lucy Show. During their time, they released 2 albums. You know, what they wound up doing is they sent a cassette of their material to REM. And when REM came to UK, they invited the Lucy Show to be their support act. After their second album, their label, here we go, second album, the label went bankrupt, and it really set them adrift with no promotion, and they wound up breaking up. So Mania, their second album, came out in 86. And this was more upbeat and bouncy than their first album, because what they did is on this album they added acoustic guitar, piano was put in there, and even some brass was put in. It was kind of a completely different from their debut album, which really was much more jangly guitar, new wave type of a band. This album did top the CMJ charts. CMJ was the college music journal. Great magazine I always used to get back in the day. And it got a lot of college radio play, especially the single A Million Things. The song, when you listen to it, you know, the songs, they have a kind of, there's a feel of REM, but also a feel of The Cure within their music. It opens up with this double shot, the very, you know, the land and the light. So there's just like this double shot of reverb ecstasy going on, and then there's a view from the outside, and you feel that in that too. New Message, it has this solid, really chunky drum beat, and it's just these ringing arrangements that are accentuated with a very cool trumpet. I just love the sound of that. Sojourn's End has psychedelic touches put on, and Sad September, that song really is just kind of this very lovely, moody acoustic number, but the vocals are so haunting. Part of Me, another song on there, really has a pulsating synthesizer, and it just kind of grabs your attention. So it's a neat album. I really enjoyed this. It was one of the many blind buys that I did not know about, but quite a few do, especially in the UK. The Lucy Show, and their second album, Mania. Number 86, Big Audio Dynamite. And the one I'm showing right now, this is this one here is Tighten Up 88. So Big Audio Dynamite, it's a post-punk alternative dance band. I think that best describes it. It was formed in 1984 by former Clash guitarist Mick Jones. And it lasted until 1997. He created the music. The music was created really it was like a stew of punk rock, dance music, hip hop, and reggae. In '83, Mick Jones was fired from the Clash, and he performed actually briefly with general public, and then formed a new group called Top Risk Action Company, which became Big Audio Dynamite when he had Don Letts join in. So Tighten Up Volume 88 was their third album, and this one came out in 1988. Oh my God, isn't that something else? The name actually, Tighten Up, is from a Trojan compilation series. That's not the Plasmatics, please. That's the record label, in case you're confused. The former Clash bassist Paul Simeon. I know I'm saying that wrong. I just, God, me and names. It's a curse. It's a curse. But he did the artwork for this, and Joe Strummer actually produced 5 of the tracks. Isn't that neat? How, and hey, they broke up, but they were still doing stuff together. On this album, the songs are shorter and they're a little more conventional than previous albums, because really they were trying to hit the charts. You want to make money, you want to get bigger tours, you need to hit the charts, and that's what they were trying to do on this one. And so there's like Rock Non-Stop, which is kind of a nice dance rock pop song, and then it's followed by Other 99, which is also in a similar vein. There's Funny Names, I believe. Yeah, Funny Names. And that has just this country feel to it. And in all honesty, when you listen to that, you would say, Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr should be singing the vocals. It's just kind of his range. Apple Cart, again, is another song that has just a solid pop melody. What is missing is what you heard in the first 2 bad albums from Big Audio Dynamite, was they had these cinematic samples that they were using, and it kind of gave them more of an ominous feel. Another song on here is Champagne, and that has just kind of a strong sing-along type of a chorus with it. It's about a woman who falls in love with alcohol over people. Kind of sad. The last song, Just Play Music, is one of the strongest tracks, and what they do is it mixes dance and pop together, and they did it with really good success. Overall, this album, it's definitely not as experimental as the first 2, but it's still very enjoyable. I have another Big Audio Dynamite in vinyl. Otherwise, I have a number of CDs, and so this is Big Audio Dynamite, and this is one of their early ones. Actually, this one came out before this one. They're both from 1988. So that was another one that they did. So number 86, though it has number 88 in the name, Big Audio Dynamite. Number 85, It's the Wonder Stuff. This is another album that I recently had shown on my channel. This is a British alternative band that was formed in '86. They went to 1994. They broke up, and then in 2000 they reformed again, and they're still playing. Their first iteration, they released 4 albums and 20 singles. They were basically kind of a guitar pop band, but as they evolved, it became more of a folk country type band. So this album here is called 8-Legged Groove Machine, and it's their first album, and it was released in 1988. Folks have compared the Wonder Stuff to the Buzzcocks, but not as sweet-natured as the Buzzcocks were. This album is filled with buzzy little, 2-minute pop songs. Again, kind of like the Buzzcocks. But the lyrics are definitely a lot more off-putting. For instance, there's the song No for the 13th Time, or Give Me More, 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 or Ashley in a Noose, which is singing about their disdain for Rick Astley. The tunes are really catchy, but you could say they're kind of marred by snotty, arrogant lyrics that go with those catchy harmonies. So really fun listen. As long as you just really don't pay attention to the lyrics, unless you like really snotty lyrics, by God, you would really, then you can't go wrong with this. Number 85, The Wonder Stuff. Number 84, it's The Suburbs. And these guys, this band, came out of Minneapolis. It's an alt-punk rock, funk, new wave band. They formed in 77, broke up in 87. Then in 92, they reformed again, and they're still playing. Back in the day, in the late 70s, early 80s, this band was headlining at one of the major places in Minneapolis. It was called the Fifth Avenue. And during this time period, during their first go-around, they put out 7 different albums. And in the Minneapolis scene, they were probably the most popular band. Now, I lived in Minneapolis in the early to the mid-'80s, and the music was incredible. You had the Suicide Commandos, the Urban Guerrillas, the Replacements, and Husker Du. But the Suburbs, they reigned supreme. Their first full-length album they released in 1980, and it was done on Twin Tone. They just created this rabid fan base. And they even opened up for Iggy Pop and the B-52s. Well, in 1986, they signed to A&M Records. They wanted a hit. They wanted to do more. So they got with A&M Records. The album, so they did this album. This is what they did for A&M Records. It was produced by Prince and the Revolution's drummer, Bobby Z. Bobby Z, all right. But not the one that we know. All right, the band, they tried to keep the rock sound going, but really, on this album, it gets overshadowed by that 80s new wave dance feel. You have the electronic drums going on. There's lots of keys. They got a little airplay, but not much with this, and they wound up breaking up in 87. What happened was their angst and skittish type lyrics were just replaced and into more listenable music. And it is. This is a listenable album. If you like 80s new wave, you really can't go wrong. Problem is, it's not the Suburbs. It's not what people really like. There's songs like number 9. It has some hard guitars and horns, but it really gets lost behind the drums. They still have great lyrics. Every night's a Friday night. In hell, and America Sings the Blues. If you listen to them, the lyrics are really good, but there's this polish being put on them. They wanted a hit, and that's why they got with someone from Prince and the Revolution. This is not their best album. I'm showing it to you because I want you to know about the Suburbs. If you can find their stuff on Twin Tone, which I need to look more and try to find, that is some great music. They reigned supreme in Minneapolis over Husker Du, over the Replacements, over Urban Guerrillas. These guys were it. Regretfully, this album just kind of put them down the wrong path. So look for them. Number 84, Suburbs. Number 83, it's the Plasmatics. Most people know all about the Plasmatics. Not necessarily for their music, but more for the fact that their lead singer, Wendy Williams, put electric tape on her nipples. It was all the rage when you were a younger kid. Yep. This group, this is what you get when your manager and chief lyricist, Ron Swenson, was an ex-porn entrepreneur, and he teams up with a former sex show queen named Wendy Williams. You put those two together and you get the Plasmatics. They were a kind of punk rock, metal, shock rock band that formed in '77 and lasted until '83 out of New York. They actually put out 5 different albums. These guys, they were known for their chaotic and destructive live shows and controversial theatrics. I mean, they did things included chainsawing guitars, blowing up the speakers, sledgehammering TVs, and folks, yes, even blowing automobiles up on stage. If you don't have a lot of talent, then you need to make a spectacle of it. So why am I showing a band that doesn't have a lot of talent? Because they went on and what they did is they opened up doors and created a new genre of music. They were signed to Stiff Records, and this is off Stiff Records, and this is their first album, New Hope for the Wretched, which came out in 1980. In it, Williams, she just hoarsely shouts and talks and has this heavy, breathless lyrics that deal with sex and violence and other grotesque subjects. But it's done at a punk speed with volume. It's really, it's not the most listenable album. Let me just be honest with you. There's songs like Butcher Baby, which featured a chainsaw sawing through a guitar in place of the guitar solo. The producer of the album, Jimmy Miller, he was a heroin addict, and so you just don't, it kind of made things a little weird. There's the song Concrete Shoes. It has this heavy punk feel with these loud tom-toms pushing it forward. That wasn't too bad. But again, at times, it's hard to listen to. In '82, though, they came out with this one, Coup d'etat. And this was really a breakthrough album for them. And what it did is it began to blend punk and metal genres. And really, Williams was pushing her singing, so every day, she's pushing it so hard that every day she had to get special treatments to avoid permanently damaging her vocal cords. What I said, this group, they kind of pushed boundaries. They opened the doors and helped create music like Anthrax and the Cro-Mags. That was what they were doing. And so it's just, again, punk and metal, putting it all together. So, number 83, they're not always easily listenable, but still an influential group, the Plasmatics. Number 82, The. Don't you love that? The. And this is the album Infected. The is the brainchild and basically solo project for Matt Johnson. The music is post-punk, new wave, alternative rock. The group formed in '79 and it's still performing. They started as a band, but by '82, it was a solo project, and there was just a revolving door of artists from then on, except for Matt Johnson. Infected was released in '86, and this was their second album, or his second album, shall we say, and actually produced 4 singles within the UK and peaked at number 14. The single Heartland that they had was an attack on working class Tories. He was mad at them because they kept thinking that their economy was on par with France and Germany. And he said, no, it's not, you idiots. And it stayed on the chart for 10 weeks. There's Sweet Bird of Truth, which was about the U.S. military involvement in the Middle East. Yes, back in 1986, there are still songs about our involvement in the Middle East. Some things never change. These songs, they seethe with anger and discourse. This is not an optimistic album whatsoever. You could just tell by looking at that cover and Infected. Infected itself is just this dance track. On here, Nina Cherry does guest vocals. Twilight of a Champion is another song. It has kind of this 40-ish jazz noir type feel to it. The lyrics, for the most part, they're very grim and they're filled just with tension. And the music at times, has an upbeat 80s feel to it. But boy, when you get down and you listen to what he's saying, it's not upbeat at all. So number 82, the album's Infected. Number 81, Tom Verlaine. And the album that I'm going to show here is Dreamtime. Tom Miller, as his parents like to call him, came out of Denville, New Jersey. He's most known for his band Television. He switched his name actually to Verlaine when he and one of his best friends, Richard Hell, moved to New York and decided it would be cool to change my last name. So there was a French poet named Paul Verlaine, so he thought, I'll just call myself Tom Verlaine. Him and Hell, they formed the Neon Boys, and then they did Television before they split up. Well, Dreamtime, this is his second album, and I'm still looking for his first album, which is very good. This is post-punk. Without a Word, one of the songs, Without a Word, it's classic Television style with the dueling repeat guitar lines. There's Mary Marie, and it has this slow, funky R&B feel to it, but he accentuates it with an organ. The Blue Road, it's an instrumental jam that really is kind of reminiscent of Creedence Clearwater Revival. Chugling, they would call it chugling. It just has this ongoing feel. There's the song Penetration on this album, and it's really sparse, and it's, shall we say, it has this strutting and plodding, diffused guitar happening. This album, it's just packed with guitar licks, and even adds in a few horns just for fun. If you liked Marquee Moon, then this album's for you. Really, this is a great album. The difference is that none of these songs expand out. They don't go for a very long time. There's more brevity. Brevity was the key to this. It's still filled with obtuse lyrics, and there's the jittery guitars and the avant jazz techniques. So you still have him. His next album was Words from the Front, and this one, he tames himself more and becomes more, shall we say, pop oriented. But this album here, man, it's almost like listening to Television again. So number 81, Tom Verlaine. And there we got it, part 2. Really appreciate you again jumping on, watching this series. It's been exciting. I got the next 10 ready to go, so I'm really looking forward to doing this. It's just fun to revisit these. Coming to see old friends, nothing wrong with that. I stayed 6 feet away. Well, no, I did. I've been touching every one of them, so well, too late for any of that, isn't it? So, thanks everyone. I hope you're having a great week, doing the best that you can. And again, I also appreciate you dropping by. Have a good evening and a great rest of the week. Bye.